Christina Barn. You're watching Black T News. Hello. Welcome to Black T News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Anthony Fauci. He came in the news this weekend because he was asked some questions about Catholicism and how he practices, and essentially he said he has his own morality sort of figured out enough that he doesn't really need church or anything like that. And people can have issues with the structures of different denominations or whatever. But to think that Anthony Fauci's morality is just so top tier that he doesn't need to have any sort of other guidance in that form or to sit under anyone is just really crazy to me. And so just the arrogance of it is astounding, and it really reminded me of of this character on Fringe. If you've seen that TV show, it's a great show, but we'll talk about that today. Also, Mitt Romney, he said on TV during an interview that he didn't think that there was enough information to really impeach Joe Biden, or not even just impeach, but do an impeachment inquiry. And that was really interesting to me because he voted to impeach Trump. Maybe both times, but definitely the first time. And there wasn't good reason. There wasn't good reason. Definitely didn't, I think, rise to high crimes and misdemeanors. And some time ago, I wrote an article saying that if the Democrats, based on not even making an argument that that in a normal world that you shouldn't impeach Joe Biden, but the same people who felt the need to impeach Trump over what they impeached him over could definitely make the case, if they were consistent, that they have enough right now to go ahead and impeach Joe. And they're not even impeaching Joe right now. There's an impeachment inquiry where they're finding out information to see if they have enough to go along and do the deed. And if the Democrats are smart, they should probably just go ahead and impeach him and get rid of him. But anyway, we'll be talking about that. And also big hubbubaloo over the weekend. So Donald Trump was at an event and he brought up a story involving a general saying some stuff about how brave he was that involved like the Hollywood Access tape dropping and Trump still going on the debate stage. And so DeSantis made a comment about Trump's comment, and DeSantis's comment wasn't quite accurate. So I want to call him out for not being accurate. But the people defending Trump and coming for DeSantis for what he said, it just wasn't I don't know why you'd want to revisit that and bring that up at all. So I want to talk about that, go back in time a bit, and I guess revisit some feelings and some drama that happened. Because I was working for the Michigan Republican Party at the time. And when the Hollywood tape dropped, oh my gosh, it was like end of the world. And when Trump came back on the debate stage, it was willing to fight. If he wouldn't have came out with a good debate performance, he would have just been done. There would have been like, I'm not saying everybody would have packed up and went home, but that's what it felt like. People felt like it was pretty much the end. And I was like, if he doesn't come out and fight, and he did come out and fight, but the comments that he made that allegedly a general told him was embarrassing, I think. And people are saying it's just a joke. It's not something I would repeat as someone who was the commander in chief. So, I've got criticisms for everybody today. So anyway, thank you guys for being with me. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. Articles like the one I'm going to reference today regarding the impeachment and hypocrisy with the Democrats and Trump and Biden. I'll read actually through it today, if not the whole thing, to just get the context of how dumb Mitt Romney is. But go ahead, check out stuff on the website, check out different merch that we have at the website. different t-shirts, different mugs that we have there. My shirt, Am I the victim you're looking for, is pretty popular. People really like that. I wore that to church on Friday night, and someone was one of the church mothers like, can you help me order that? And so I helped her order it. So and I did a video with the shirt on, and people were like, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? It's at blacktnews.com. So check out the different merch that I have. I've got mugs and other stuff like that. Check out some of the books that I've written. I have 17 that are published. Two are nonfiction, the rest are fiction, anything from like children's chapter books to like new adult kind of stuff. And Here's a picture with me, 15 of them. And I have my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion, right there. So go ahead and check it out, read it. Thank you to those of you who have read it. Most of my books, all my books are on Amazon. They're all available in paperback and Kindle. So, a lot of them, most of them are available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have that program, as long as you flip through the pages and read it, I will get paid. Some of I think my nonfiction books though are not on Kindle Unlimited. I think those are the only ones, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, lots of ways to read. If you want to find out more, just go to blacktnews.com. Go to the merchandise page, and it'll take you to my book website, or you can just find me on Amazon. So um, let's just hop to it, because we got lots to say, lots to get through. So first things first, I think I want to talk about Dr. Anthony Fauci. Now, we all lived through the dilemma of the pandemic, and through people taking away our liberties, people gaslighting different folks, some people believing different conspiracies, but people exaggerating the science to inflict fear and gain power. The social media platforms suppressing people, YouTube, Twitter, definitely, Facebook. It was just a really rough time for people who, not just because people did lose loved ones um, during the pandemic, but um, how they sheltered people, how people had to be in the hospitals alone, the people in the nursing homes had to be alone. There's a video of Ron DeSantis that's really touching, and you get to see like him break down a little bit when he's talking about the nursing homes and the isolation that they had at first, and then how people had a decline, and he contemplated the sort of harm that we've done to our elderly, and he got a little choked up. And so when he says that he wants to like rectify the situation, or at least look to make sure these things don't happen again and make some people answerable, I think he means that, because I think he's analyzed some harm he's done, but there's some other folks who don't want to kind of look in the mirror and acknowledge some things. So it was a rough time. My dad had COVID, and you're like, you can say, oh, but did you take the vaccine? There was no vaccine at that time. He went in the hospital like the day after the election, and they just put him on the COVID floor. They didn't even test him first. Um, and because he's had like similar kind of things going on when he had like a pneumonia or whatever, but they just put him in there, and then couldn't see him, and then he like rapidly deteriorated, and then they wanted to put him in a nursing home, and we had to like fight them to say, no, you're not doing that. And they kind of even threatened at one point, like, well, it could look like you're refusing care. And we're just like, please give us our dad back, we will take care of him. And we did, and we had to put like a bed in the living room. It was just rough. It was just rough for everybody. It was just a terrible, terrible time, um, for so many different reasons. But Dr. Fauci certainly didn't make it better, and he became like the face of not just the pandemic, of not just the task force, of not just like political power, because it's fashionable to say you don't like Fauci now, but at the end of the Trump campaign, they literally cut a commercial saying we do whatever Fauci tells us to do. And when I say literally, they literally cut the commercial. That's not word for word, but that was pretty much the gist of it. There are people who had candles, like I don't know, religious sort of Catholic looking candles with Fauci's face on it, and he just rose to such celebrity status, where people didn't want to look like they were saying anything against him. Um, And then he'd be like, when they reject me, they reject science. It just got to this level of pure arrogance that was just beyond what normal people should have. Um, and he left before Republicans could really start drilling him a lot, which he still, had people asking questions. I think of we'll see what happens when a Republican president gets back in power. Hopefully that will happen, um, not this upcoming January, but the one after that. And we'll have a reckoning. We'll have a reckoning. But Dr. Fauci lied a lot about mask and gain of function research and all sorts of different things. So him believing that he has such an upstanding moral character that he kind of doesn't need any sort of guidance, yet still considers himself to be Catholic, was very interesting. So let me show you guys the tape so you know what I'm talking about. I've got plenty to say about it. I'm sure you guys probably will too. So yeah, Anthony Fauci was asked about religion and his religion and how close it is to him, and he had a very interesting answer.
Dahlgren Chapel, where Chris and I were
That's
were
where you were
married.
married, right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Do you still go there? Do you
No.
you don't practice
No,
anymore, do you?
I don't, no.
Why?
A number of complicated reasons.
Go on. We have a whole corridor.
First of all, I think my own personal ethics on life are, I think, enough to keep me going on the right path. And I think that there are enough negative aspects about the organizational church that you're very well aware of. I'm not against it. I identify myself as a Catholic. I was raised, I was baptized, I was confirmed, I was married in the church. My children were baptized in the church. But as far as practicing it, it seems almost like a pro forma thing that I don't really need to do.
A performative thing that he doesn't really need to do because his personal ethics will keep him on the right path. So all you don't have to be a good Christian out there to kind of know it. Like I'm sure you've seen the Ten Commandments before, and you just know it's kind of wrong to do certain things. We know that it's wrong to lie, other sort of things. So prior to the pandemic, if Fauci was asked about like, lockdowns or natural immunity or stuff, he would say things that just seem kind of common. Like if you get a sickness or whatever and you recover and you have natural immunity. And but they were against such things, so they want everyone to get the jab, and they want everyone to get the booster, and get your other booster, and you get your other booster, get your other booster, etc. They had things to sell, right? With the mask, he was like against the mask, like no, then you don't do that, you don't wear a mask, like prior to the pandemic. So when the pandemic started, they still were like, no, you don't need to wear masks, right? At the very beginning, if you can recall, I know it was so long ago in our mind, so much has happened since then. But, being sarcastic, of course, it wasn't that long ago, but so much stuff happens in the news. Some people just forget it. At first, they were saying, you don't need to wear masks. It's silly. You don't have to do that. And then they said, yes, you do need to wear masks. But the reason why they told you not to wear masks, and Fauci said such, is because they didn't want everyone to buy up the mask from medical staff. So one, I don't believe that I believe his first inclination when he was more honest about this stuff prior to the pandemic was correct about not needing to wear the mask. That's what I really believe. But then they decided they wanted everyone that they needed to wear masks, and they came up with this decision. Now maybe there's some truth to the reasoning or not, but they're like, oh, we needed you to wear them. But we just didn't want everyone to go basically just buy up all the stuff so there's no mask for surgical staff and stuff, or medical staff. So instead of reasoning with the American people, saying, Mr. President Trump, like, you need to go on TV and say everyone needs to make their own masks. Like, we need as much as possible to go to medical staff, and we don't need people buying up all the really good ones or all the ones that usually go to to people who'd be caring for people. We just need to make them. And by the way, that's what my mom just made, like, her mask. She like never bought them. My mom never bought them. She would just go buy different fabrics and make them, and she gave them to us or whatever. A lot of people make masks. I have a friend who makes custom bow ties, and he can make custom ties and stuff too. It's Dapper on Arrival. My sister gets bows from him all the time. There's a judge who I know got a really cool custom bow tie with the Constitution on it. He was making masks, and I think donating some of his proceeds, you know, to as he was making the masks and stuff. So the American people could have done that if that's what they needed to do. But you deciding, let's say it's true that we needed the masks, but they told us not to use a mask because they thought it was more important that the medical people had the mask. They made a decision that it was worth risking all of our lives to just be dishonest with us, to say you don't need this. And it's fine enough if you guys go out there and die, but just to keep you from buying all this stuff up. That's not ethical. That's not moral. And it's darn deceptive. So they're picking who gets to live and who gets to die. So that's happened. So there was just lots of flip-flopping throughout the pandemic. Rand Paul has been like the arch nemesis of Dr. Fauci throughout the I was gonna say years, but it hasn't really been that long. I guess it's been a few now. Dr. Fauci, he's had some interesting practices. He was not so nice to some beagles, I heard, some dogs, some experiments. And then there's the gain of function research that he kept denying that he really did, but then they like kind of changed the definition of gain of function research. So gain of function research is when you make diseases more powerful. Because you want to, I guess, get ahead of it in case something happens. And so you're like, oh, well, we already solved this problem because we already made this deadly virus. But it's like, okay, but what if your deadly virus is the thing that just kills everyone? So there's that. But when you feel like you have that sort of authority that you can just make those decisions, and maybe you don't have any other sort of guiding principle telling you that you strayed too far, that maybe that because you're just so smart and you're not just a person, you're just a scientist. You are the science. When you get to that level, I guess it's very easy to say you don't need a silly thing like an organization, church structure, or whatever to guide you. Now I'm not Catholic, and so I hope someone like Trent Horn or someone comes along and looks at that clip and I don't know, scolds him. I'm there's things that are wrong in any kind of church, and I could name things that he's probably assuming or kind of referencing that he didn't quite say. Like, I don't know, sexual assaults and other things like that. But there's always predators in any sort of aspect of life where they can. If there's cover-ups and things like that, of course, that's egregious, and there have been such cases. But you'll find that in situations like that in government. You'll find it in schools. Coaches and teachers. Families, all, but that doesn't mean that you destroy the entire institution. I don't know what else he could be. I guess I could guess other things he might be referencing, and but I don't know what all he might mean. Again, I hope like Trent Horn or someone looks at that clip and breaks it down further. But I don't know. I've of course had a lot of conversations with people who don't feel that they need some kind of covering or some kind of I don't know, structure or and they feel that they can figure it all out on their own, ethically, morally, or biblically, and they don't need some kind of church. But usually when I have conversations with people, the throughout the conversation, it becomes evident normally to me that they've missed a lot of things and they're kind of off the mark. Um, at least that's how it seems every time I have a conversation about it. But Dr. Fauci, yeah, definitely has made some wrong turns ethically. It could probably use someone to sit him down and say, "Sir, you are not God, and I don't know, creating super viruses is kind of a bad idea." Lying to the American people is a bad thing. You know, doing unethical sort of practices is a bad thing. Getting this big ego, having this much pride in yourself is a bad thing. Now, there was a TV show that I used to watch called Fringe. Came on Fox. You could probably last time I watched it, I rewatched the whole thing. It was on IMDb, so you could probably, I don't know. It's been a year or two, but you might be able to find it on IMDb and watch it with commercials and stuff. That's how I last watched it, or someone might have it. But it's a really cool science fiction show about French science and stuff. But the main character, well, not the main character, but one of the main characters is Walter Bishop. And so he was a brilliant scientist, like a mad scientist. And but he was in a mental institution for years, and his son, and then they needed his help. So they got his son to get him out so he could help them on cases and stuff. And a lot of things that they have to deal with in the show is somehow maybe related to Walter, his work, or how it evolved, or someone took it and ran with it or whatever. And so Walter, he's very funny, quite feeble. He can be pretty ornery at times. But he believed at one point he was, sharp and very arrogant and stuff. He had an assistant in his lab who was religious, and she tried to say what you're doing is like unethical, and this, is beyond this. Only God should be able to do this. And he said something along the lines, "I'm the only God in this lab." And so at one point he had crossed the line. He went too far, like as far as like he would do the experiments about crossing over to like an alternate reality and stuff. So he actually had a friend of his remove a piece of his brain so he wouldn't be as brilliant, because he was too dangerous. He thought it was too dangerous. So as it progressed further in the series, I'm sorry if I'm going in the weeds, but I'm just trying to get to my point, so just bear with me. It's a really good show. Sorry, I'm spoiling it so much. But it got further along in the show where they needed him to be like up to 100%. So he found a way to get like access to like some portion of his brain or whatever that would revitalize or regrow the area that was missing. So he started to get that, become more of his old self, and he started to fear himself, that sort of arrogance that he had, because there was like a disregard for other people that he had, because he was just so arrogant. And all, the ends justify the means, according to his mind, according to his wisdom. And I know there's other smart people making decisions, but when you think that you're the smartest and no one else has anything to offer that's as good as what you could possibly say, that leads into a lot of problems, especially if you have tunnel vision. So anyway, he started to scare himself, and he didn't want to ruin the relationship with his son that he was building, and so on. So there ended up being like the special child that he connected with or whatever. And then all of a sudden he seemed kind of normal, and his son was like, "Dad, like, what's going on? Because you said that you were really concerned that you would become the man that you were." And he started talking about the boy who touched him. And he said when he touched him, he said he realized that all the knowledge that he had could fit into a thimble. um the boy was just like really advanced and other stuff like that, and he had some kind of like super awareness on stuff, and it just put things into perspective. And that perspective that humbled him, made him take a step back enough to kind of slay and destroy that old version of himself. So I brought that all up to say, when you're too wise in your own eyes, you become quite a danger. You become quite a danger. There's some people who have there's this particular former Muslim who became an atheist. Can't think of her name, but it's been top news as of late, especially in the Christian realm. But she's become a Christian. I don't know how much she's kind of like given into the actual revelation of Christ or anything like that. Excuse me, but she's realized that new atheism, the sort of like um uh gosh, what's the guy who said Hunter Biden could have kids in his basement? Can't, he wouldn't care. Gosh, well, she just realized that this the sort of new atheism that they offered doesn't really have a lot to offer society as a whole, and we need something bigger to aspire to, to to hold our, I guess, morals and world together. And so Fauci deciding that he's so kind of too smart to need the church is on brand. I guess it's on brand, but I think there's a lot of people nodding and saying, "Oh, I get it. I totally understand a little bit more about Fauci because he's at that point of I am good enough. I am only me." Only me. So it's no shock to me now that he could be like, I am the science. You disrespect me, you're disrespecting science, because he's risen to a level that's too far above, where that he thinks is too far above. He's like Walter there with all that arrogance. I'm the only god in this lab or whatever. Um, but I hope that one day he reaches that revelation that whatever he thinks he knows is enough to fit into a thimble. So anyway, I suppose that's all I have to say for now. But I'll go ahead and move on to the next topic with Mitt Romney, another person to complain about. Okay, so Mitt Romney said something that was quite interesting in an interview. Um, That is really crazy, in my opinion. And I'm sure you guys will agree, especially when we go back in time to 2000 and listen to his reasoning about why he decided to impeach Trump. But they're talking about Joe Biden and the impeachment inquiry. And we'll go from there.
House Republicans have signaled that they may vote as early as this week on an impeachment inquiry into President Biden, despite the fact that they haven't shown yet a direct link between Hunter Biden's business dealings and President Biden. Have you seen any evidence that President Biden has committed high crimes and misdemeanors?
No, I don't see any evidence of that at all. I think before you begin an impeachment inquiry, you ought to have some evidence, some inclination that there's been wrongdoing. And so far, there's nothing of that nature that's been provided.
So are you opposed to the impeachment inquiry?
Well, if I were in the House, I'd vote against it unless they were able to bring forward evidence that suggests that there were a high crime or misdemeanor that had been committed. But so far, that hasn't been the case. Look, fortunately, for most people, we're not responsible for the misdeeds of our kids and grandkids and great-grandkids. Nothing in my family I'm embarrassed about. But President Biden's son, Hunter, is obviously been a very unsavory person and has had some extremely damaging personal foibles, including a drug habit and so forth. That's not President Biden, and we're not going to impeach someone because of the sins of their kids.
Oh boy. Oh boy. So why do you only mention the drug problem as if that's the only issue? The issue, which I don't even think they really got into with this tax stuff. I have to double check, but the FARA issue, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, and Joe Biden's correlation there with his son and the money and the business dealings. Now, it's very interesting that he seems to have such a high bar that they need to have with um, Joe Biden while they're doing this inquiry. Um, but he certainly voted to impeach Donald Trump. He certainly voted to impeach Donald Trump. And he's saying, I don't think Joe Biden's done anything for high crimes and misdemeanors. I'm very confused on, other than spite, other than you hate Trump, on why you would vote against moving forward anymore with the Republicans on this, but you felt the need to vote to convict Trump. And we're not talking about the second impeachment after the Capitol riot. We're talking about the first one with the Zelensky phone call where he decided that Trump was worthy of being impeached, knowing that he'd be in the minority there. So let's go back in time a little bit. If you can stand and listen to Mitt Romney, I have some of his impeachment speech here that we will go through. And then I want to go through a bit of an article that I wrote some time ago saying, in the gist of the article is, if you Democrats voted to impeach Trump with what we know now, and this was some weeks back, with what we know at the time that even wrote that article, there's enough to impeach Biden. If you implied the same standard, but that's not what they shall do, of course. So we're gonna go back in time. I don't think I downloaded it. Hold on. Let me share my screen with you all. Someone uploaded on Twitter. Well, now X. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, like his intro and stuff. I don't want to do all that. We'll start in at like about 2 minutes. Again, this is the first impeachment after the Zelensky phone call and all that stuff.
Statutory crimes, they would demand removal from office
Oh.
that are so egregious that while they are not high crimes and misdemeanors,
Let me go back a little bit more.
they're left to the voters. Let me first address those decisions I have ever faced. I was not wrong. The House managers presented evidence supporting their case, and the White House counsel disputed that case. In addition, the president's team presented 3 defenses. First, that there could be no impeachment without a statutory crime. Second, that the Biden's conduct justified the president's actions. And third, that the judgment of the president's actions should be left to the voters. Let me first address those 3 defenses. The historic meaning of the words high crimes and misdemeanors, the writings of the founders, and my own reasoned judgment convinced me that a president can indeed commit acts against the public trust that are so egregious that while they are not statutory crimes, they would demand removal from office. To maintain the
So we'll keep listening. I just want to keep in mind that he said there are some things that are so egregious that it's a violation of public trust that he believes is worth it, basically. And there's such a huge violation, and people outside of different legal folks or people who used to work under Obama and stuff put out different articles basically making that claim as well. So if this big violation of trust is not just worth the public saying, oh, we can't vote for you, it's worth you actually voting someone out of office, I think you have to do a darn good job explaining how Biden doesn't quite meet that threshold. But I guess there's blinders on, because in that interview, he's like, oh, yeah, Biden's son, he does drugs. It's bad. But that's not Joe Biden. As if Hunter didn't do things beyond doing drugs. He's done some things beyond the drugs, sir. Anyway, let's keep watching.
The lack of a codified and comprehensive list of all the outrageous acts that a president might conceivably commit renders Congress powerless to remove such a president, defies reason. The president's counsel also notes that Vice President Biden appeared to have a conflict of interest when he undertook an effort to remove the Ukrainian prosecutor general. If he knew of the exorbitant compensation his son was receiving from a company actually under investigation, the vice president should have recused himself. While ignoring a conflict of interest is not a crime, it is surely very wrong. With regards to Hunter Biden, taking excessive advantage of his father's name is unsavory, but also not a crime. Given that in neither the case of the father nor the son was any evidence presented by the president's counsel that a crime had been committed, the president's insistence that they be investigated by the Ukrainians is hard to explain other than as a political pursuit. There's no question in my mind that were their names not Biden, the president would never have done what he did. The defense argues that the Senate should leave the impeachment decision to the voters. While that logic is appealing to our democratic instincts, it is inconsistent with the Constitution's requirement that the Senate, not the voters.
So I'll let him keep going, but I just want to interject and say that there's big concern about Hunter Biden not just using his dad's name for money and stuff, the influence for money, which he obviously did and always admitted to. I think the only person who was lying about that was Joe at times. Him violating different overseas lobbying laws, like FARA and stuff, is a real issue. Now he basically dodged that in some things that he was indicted over. It's still on the table. But I think the DOJ, they really wouldn't want to go there because that would really put Joe under a microscope with there. Which, by the way, Hunter Biden would have basically gotten away with the tax stuff, the gun charges, if not for two whistleblowers basically saying that they were doing things that were just inconceivable that would not happen on normal cases. But obviously, the president's son, they were looking into, and they didn't want to convict him or whatever. So they got called out, and so they charged him with some more stuff. Thing that's probably the most damning, though, is still out there. Don't know if they will or won't charge. But Mitt Romney, there's a lot more that we know now that he probably didn't know back then, but there's a lot of issues going on with Hunter and Joe that's more than just favors and whatnot.
Try the president. Hamilton explained that the founders' decision to invest senators with this obligation rather than leave it to the voters was intended to minimize, to the extent possible, the partisan sentiments of the public at large. So the verdict is ours to render under our Constitution. The people will judge us for how well and faithfully we fulfill our duty. The grave question the Constitution tasks senators to answer.
Yes, history will judge, and I am judging him. I am judging him so much right now.
Is whether the president committed an act so extreme and egregious that it rises to the level of a high crime and misdemeanor. Yes, he did. The president asked a foreign government to investigate his political rival. The president withheld vital military funds from that government to press it to do so. The president delayed funds for an American ally at war with Russian invaders. The president's purpose was personal and political. Accordingly, the president is guilty of an appalling abuse of public trust. What he did was not perfect. No, it was a flagrant assault on our electoral rights, our national security, and our fundamental values. Corrupting an election to keep oneself in office is perhaps the most abusive and destructive violation of one's oath of office that I can imagine. In the last several weeks, I've received numerous calls and texts. Many demanded in their words that I stand with the team. I can assure you that that thought has been very much on my mind. You see, I support a great deal of what the president has done. I voted with him 80% of the time. But my promise before God to apply impartial justice required that I put my personal feelings and political biases aside.
Does anyone think that he made this decision after he put his personal feelings aside? Yeah, right.
Were I to ignore the evidence that has been presented and disregard what I believe my oath and the Constitution demands of me for the sake of a partisan end, it would, I fear, expose my character to history's rebuke and the censure of my own conscience. I'm aware that there are people in my party and in my state who will strenuously disapprove of my decision. And in some quarters, I will be vehemently.
Okay, I think that's pretty much enough there with Mitt Romney to get the gist. You guys can go back down memory lane for the rest of that if you would like. But yeah. Now, let's go back to the article again. I wrote this in August. 17th is when I published it. So let me zoom in a little bit. Share my screen. So I think his reasoning is so dumb. Congress impeached Trump. They can certainly impeach Biden. Impeachment ought to be rare, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell told the New York Times. This is not good for the country. To be fair, McConnell warned of an impeachment climate back when Donald J. Trump was president. I said 2 years ago, when we had not one but two impeachments, that once we go down this path, it incentivizes the other side to do the same. But President Trump was impeached twice. Though we shouldn't get into a habit of impeaching every president the House of Representatives doesn't like, we shouldn't stop impeachments if there's merit to it. The problem with not impeaching Biden is that Trump was impeached for things Biden appeared to have done himself. Plus, there are more serious allegations at hand. President Trump was impeached in 2019 for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. For the abuse of power, Trump engaged in a not so perfect phone call with Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky, inquiring about an election interference theory involving CrowdStrike and the firing of Prosecutor General Victor Shokin. There's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the attorney general would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution, so you can look into it. It sounds horrible to me. Which I assume Trump was watching Fox News and probably saw that on Fox News and was like, hey, this looks bad. Hunter Biden sat on the board of Burisma, a Ukrainian oil and gas company in the past. Hunter Biden admitted he wouldn't be on the board if his last name wasn't Biden, and his former business partner, Devin Archer, recently admitted the Joe Biden name, that the Biden name intimidated and people and legally, that's why the company was able to stay in business for so long. In 2015, Burisma CEO Mykola Zhikhelski, and board advisor Vadim Pushkarsky, sorry, that's so wrong, asked Hunter Biden for help from DC while they were under investigation by Shokin. 5 days after that meeting, Joe Biden was in Ukraine. A few months later, Shokin was fired. In 2018, Joe Biden bragged about withholding $1 billion loan guarantee from Ukraine unless Victor Shokin was fired. Now, it could be a complete coincidence that Biden demanded the man investigating the company tied to his son be fired, but you'd understand why Trump was at least suspicious about it. I've played this many times. Let me just go ahead and.
I remember going over convincing our team or others to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was 6 hours. I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. and they put in place someone who was solid.
So yeah, memory lane right there. Now Zelensky wasn't aware that President Trump considered withholding a 391 million in taxpayer funds allocated for military spending, and he did release the funds. Zelensky also denied that he was blackmailed by Trump. The Democrats interpreted Trump's phone call as a quid pro quo. Trump claimed he had concerns about Europe not doing their fair share, which he often complains about, and overall corruption. President Trump released the transcript of his phone call since there was no smoking gun of quid pro quo. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff made up a dramatized and damning account of Trump's conversation. Well, it reads like a classic organized crime shakedown. He went on to claim that Trump requested Zelensky to make up dirt about Joe Biden. When Schiff was confronted, he claimed his retelling was a parody, which, by the way, I remember when Fox News was playing on TV or something, and Schiff said the line about make up dirt. My mom overheard it, and she's like, he really said that? I said, no, he didn't say that. So Schiff knew what he was doing, telling that lie. It obviously wasn't a parody. The real sin committed by Trump, according to the media and the Democrats, was using his political power to go after a political rival, regardless of whether or not Trump's concerns about Biden were warranted. Neil K. Katyal, who was acting Solicitor General in the Obama administration, even wrote in the New York Times that Trump didn't need to commit a crime to be kicked out of office. So this is the which basically Romney was also saying as well. But there's just certain actions that rise to the level of that meets like public distrust that you have to kick him out. And so he thought that Trump's behavior just arose to crimes and misdemeanors or whatever, high crimes and misdemeanors, despite there being the kind of no statute of that level broken. But the potential criminality of the president's conduct is not the full picture. Our founders deliberately drafted the Constitution's impeachment clause to ensure the potential grounds for impeachment would cover more than criminal activity. Katyal argued that Trump was ruining our trust in democracy and that Americans couldn't trust that our elections would be free from foreign interference. He also claimed Trump had opened himself up to blackmail. But Democrats did hurt the public perceptions about elections by pushing that Trump colluded with Russia. Biden also claimed in the 2020 debate stage that his son's laptop, that he must have known was legit, was Russian propaganda. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who was an advisor at the time of the campaign, allegedly helped to get 50 intelligence agents to commit to dismissing the laptop. Joe Biden purposely blamed a foreign nuclear power for election interference, knowing it wasn't true. That's no small thing. So let's watch a little bit from that debate.
Stuff is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq. If this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody.
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
Laptop from hell.
President Trump, we're
Nobody.
talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
And I
you've
have to
just
respond to that.
Please.
Because look,
very
there
quickly.
are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
And that's exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
what.
This is
told.
where he's going. The
All right.
laptop is Russia,
Yes.
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go again
President,
with Russia.
We're going to continue on the
Yeah, and of course you wanted to continue on the subject of race because it was funny how like the racial stuff was really directed at Trump. And I'm like, do you understand the treasure trove of information that you could use about race against Joe Biden? But they didn't go there, and they didn't talk about foreign policy, do a foreign policy section. So it was just, people talked about her debate performance as a moderator, which was okay if you consider the there was some important, more prevalent things that they should have been discussing for people who are going to be the commander in chief. And that conversation was important. She's like, no, I just want to talk to the subject of race, etc. Because we haven't talked enough about that. Okay. Biden's financial entanglements with his son also leave him open for potential blackmail. The Democrats will be unsatisfied unless there is a direct payment of millions of dollars into Biden's bank account with a memo that says this is for the bribe. I doubt we'll ever find such a thing, but we do have a not so perfect text from his son Hunter. I hope you all can do what I do and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years, he texted his daughter Naomi in January 2019. It's really hard, but don't worry. Unlike Pop, I won't make you give up half your salary. That's from his son. Hunter Biden also sent a threatening text to a Chinese businessman stating his father was right next to him, and there's good evidence to suggest he was telling the truth. And that links to another article where there's like photo evidence of Hunter being like, I think in his dad's car, but near like the property of Joe Biden's house. And like there's also photo evidence of Joe Biden being in town like 2 days prior. So it's probably true that when he was texting, Joe Biden was probably right there. Joe Biden used to claim he didn't talk to his son about his business dealings. Then the White House shifted the goalpost to Joe not being in business with his son. But not only did Biden talk to Hunter about his business dealings, he also talked to his business partners repeatedly. As of now, Democrats want us to believe they only talked about the weather and the president never profited from his son's business dealings. Joe Biden, I think it was last week, lied about being ever seeing his business partners and stuff again, just stuff that we know is blatantly untrue. But we know that's not true. And it's silly to believe Biden hasn't benefited from over 20 million from Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan. So that's some stuff from like the committee hearing. Again, you guys can from James Comer, you guys can go read this article to look at more of these sources. As far as going after a political rival, Trump is currently facing 2 federal indictments. Perhaps the end game is to see Trump in jail. Perhaps the end game is to suck up his time, money, and media attention so Republicans can't run a good campaign. And Biden will be reelected to the White House despite his own shady business dealings and job performance. It's a much better plan than asking Zelensky to look into a thing that we all saw Biden brag about on tape. We should have zero confidence that Biden's DOJ is just prosecuting everyone equally under the law, especially after Hunter Biden's sweetheart plea deal with hush-hush immunity for his tax and gun crimes and failure to register as a foreign agent. Though the deal blew up after the judge caught on to the ridiculousness of it, the attempt to let the president's son off is blatantly obvious. Attorney General Merrick Garland did recently appoint David Weiss to be the special counsel in the case, but Weiss is the person who presided over the sweetheart plea agreement. If anything, it looks as though Weiss is appointed to shield him from testifying in front of Congress about the case. I did read recently that they're going to call him to testify, so we'll see if that actually happens. If and when the House begins issuing subpoenas to Biden, his family, and perhaps other people in his executive branch, and they refuse, will Democrats agree with impeaching Biden with obstruction of Congress? Even if we shows up to testify about his handling of Hunter's case, every answer could easily be, I can't comment on an ongoing investigation. If you are a Democrat who voted for impeachment back in 2019, what reason do you have not to impeach Biden now, other than the fact that he's your guy? It's not good to continuously impeach presidents, but it's also not good to have a separate set of rules for one political party. The Constitution clearly states bribery is worthy of impeachment. In 2019, 3 lawyers from Protect Democracy argued the founders' idea of bribery was broader than the criminal code. Their understanding was derived from English law, under which bribery was understood as an office holder's abuse of power of an office to obtain private benefit rather than for the public interest. Was Hunter Biden using his father's name and influence for public or private benefit? When Hunter flew with his dad on Air Force Two to conduct business deals, was that in the public or private interest? I agree with McConnell that back-to-back impeachments aren't good for the country, but neither is having a president who rises up to the occasion of impeachment. It's also not good that it looks as though Trump was truly impeached for poking a very credible bear when it comes to Biden's shady business dealings. Democrats proudly impeached him anyway. Based on their reasoning for Trump's impeachment, Biden meets that threshold. So, wrote that back in August. I think I said August. August. I wrote that back in August. So it's still true. If they felt that there was enough to impeach Trump, I thought it was crazy what they're impeaching over, like obstruction of Congress, because the executive branch won't do whatever you want them to do. Okay, so we're just gonna throw that in the impeachment inquiry. Okay, yeah, but the real narrative was like he's going after his political rival. Everyone, even people who think that Trump should be charged and maybe go to jail over different things that he's done regarding the election aftermath and the electors and his classified documents, etc. Still think it's politically motivated. So, and you can say, well, there's good reason for them to do that. Except, well, can you argue that Trump didn't have good reason to at least be curious to ask Zelensky to look into it? It's true that he withheld funds for a little bit. They were already allocated, and he doesn't have the power. He's president, but he doesn't have the power the Congress does. So, but there was already like a measure like within that particular law, like a remedy for situations like that. And it's not impeachment. So they didn't need to impeach him. They wanted to impeach him. And they always wanted to impeach him. They just felt like that was finally their time. And of course it didn't work. You know, they couldn't convict him of the impeachment, but Romney was one of the slimy ones who decided to go ahead and jump on that train. And I don't find his convictions at the time that he announced, I thought that it was done back then, but seeing the contrast today, they don't have the evidence and all that he didn't commit he's not his son. Stop it. As if there's nothing shady going on. And more things have come out since that time I wrote this article. It's just bizarre. It's crazy. So Romney has always done, he says he voted with Trump 80% of the time, which, is true for most Republicans, have voted a lot on brand with Trump because they believe in a lot of the same things. But Romney was never a friend to the conservative movement. Actually, prior to him running for president, he said, I'm not a conservative, because apparently he has some kind of ideological, I don't know. I don't want to say hate, but he doesn't like conservatives. He's not a conservative. But when you want to run for president and all these people have their, mindset on Reagan, like looking for the next kind of person, then all of a sudden that's the kind of person that you kind of have to pretend to be. But Romney was never that guy. Romney was never that guy. And he's always been someone, to me, it looks like just desperately wanting to be liked and respected by the other side. But I don't understand wanting so desperately to be liked by people who hate you. And maybe hate's a strong word, but as soon as they only have a newfound respect for you when you come up against your party or something. They can't respect you when you're sticking to your guns and you're being an adversary toward them. Like all these people treat him like garbage when he ran for president. The press, the Democrats, etc. Like they made up crazy stories about him. Harry Reid just lied about him paying his taxes, and he didn't care if it was true or not. I think he knew it was a lie. But when Harry Reid, who's no longer with us, he was asked about it, he's like, I don't care. He's not president, so it worked. So anyway, moving on. Let me. I got a super chat. Nothing important, Ad. Just love you. Thank you very much. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. So I don't know, guys. I don't think this impeachment inquiry thing I don't think they're probably gonna have enough Republican support for it. But if I was a Democrat, and I've said this many times, if I was a Democrat, I'd want them to go ahead and impeach Joe, and I'd vote to get rid of Joe. I'd be like, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things in here that are they could use the similar reasoning to why they impeached Trump. Just like same arguments, basically, like public trust, blackmail possibilities. You know, I don't think it's right how they're going after the opponent or whatever. And they could make a deal with Kamala. Of course, she'd unfortunately be the president if they actually voted to impeach him. And but nobody wants to be president. But if you go that route, start this process and impeach Joe. What do you think is going to happen? She's going to be the president, and then just kind of go forward. Like, we got rid of we had a corruption issue and we dealt with it. And she could still, pardon Joe, pardon Hunter, and she could pardon Trump, just to be like clean slate or whatever, but be like, but he's still corrupt and I'm the cop. I'm the cop. Trump is corrupt. That's how I would run it if I was them. That's the smartest kind of plan. You can say, but everyone hates Kamala. They'll get information. They will get information as if she's Beyonce. They will do it. They will do it. Because she's attached to Joe right now. They don't like her, sure. But as soon as she's like the figurehead, their person of color who's a woman or whatever, they will wear their pearls and their chucks with pride. I'm telling you, that's just how they are. That's just how they are. Anyway, let's move on. I know I'm over an hour, but I want to talk about this situation with the Hollywood Access tape. I'll try not to go too long with it. But there was a clip over the weekend that circulated, and people were very upset about something that Trump said and DeSantis's response to it. Now, I don't think DeSantis's response was accurate. I just saw someone like either deleted a comment that I retweeted or blocked me. I'll have to go back and investigate it. That's why I chuckled like, haha, I guess I was too right. So anyway, let me show you DeSantis's tweet before we actually show you the video. Or maybe I'll just play the video from his tweet. Okay.
But I went onto that stage just a few days later, and a general who's a fantastic general actually said to me, "Sir, I've been on the battlefield. Men have gone down on my left and on my right. I stood on hills where soldiers were killed. But I believe the bravest thing I've ever seen was the night you went onto that stage with Hillary Clinton after what happened. And then that woman asked you the first question about it. And I said, locker room talk. It's locker room talk. What the hell? What are you talking? Locker room talk." That was not a great. But I.
So that's a snippet that's going around, and some DeSantis folks were like, "Oh, that's awful. It's terrible." And I don't know if it's all just necessarily DeSantis folks, but they're the ones who I largely sharing it. So DeSantis actually, talked about himself. He said Trump denigrates the military service by claiming it's braver that he debated Hillary Clinton than what soldiers endure on the battlefield. Debating isn't brave. It's the bare minimum any candidate should do. Hiding from debates, on the other hand, is an example of cowardice. So I know that Ron is like desperate to debate Trump, and I don't know how that would or wouldn't go, because I think there's a lot of things to ding Trump on his record about. There's things that people love, obviously, but there are things to ding him about, particularly about COVID, particularly about, I guess, basically his behavior from election day forward, and even while he was out of office, like having different people. Having Kanye and Nick Fuentes and gosh, what's the other dude? Milo had Mar-a-Lago and the cases against him and the documents. There's a lot of things that could be thrown at him, but at the same time, Trump can say a joke, a jab, or something and really shift the room, like when Megyn Kelly, I like what was the first question of the debate? Like, you said this question about women, you said this thing about women, called them fat pigs, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, only Rosie O'Donnell. And the crowd like laughed or whatever. And she tried to say, no, it was more than just her, but they didn't matter. So I don't know how it would or wouldn't go. Ron's very like record. And Trump has like tactical sort of jabs. Now he's definitely lost debates. I thought that first debate with Hillary was a bit of a disaster. First like 20 minutes was fine with economic stuff, and then I thought it was derailed. I didn't feel like he won all of his Fox debates either. And this first debate with Joe was, nobody won that one. No one won that one. It was just angry old man yell. But anyway, I know he really wants to debate Trump, but I don't think this tweet is good. I don't think this tweet is good. It's really thirsty. His desire is a little too transparent. He's way too transparent in this tweet, trying to use it so much to be like, you coward, you should debate. And he's doing it even though Trump himself didn't say the thing that he said, right? Trump didn't say that the bravest thing that he did was go on the debate stage after the Hollywood Access tape came out. And then he came out and debated Hillary Clinton. Trump isn't saying that. Okay. So regardless of the fact that I don't like that Trump brought it up at all and told the story, and I have questions about whether it's true or not, and you can say, well, it's a joke. It doesn't. I will get to my segment on why I didn't like that Trump even mentioned it. But the fact is that what Ron said was not accurate. And I think for the most part, his hits on different people has been accurate. So I think we cannot be so thirsty or desperate to do certain attacks that we damage our integrity in such a way. So I didn't like this tweet. I don't think he's going to take it down or apologize or anything like that. I don't expect campaigns to really do stuff like that. So I'm just giving my criticism of someone who I really like. And for future reference, don't do stuff like this. Don't put yourself in situations where people can say you're a liar, or what you said wasn't true, what you said wasn't accurate. Now, people are saying, well, Trump mentioned it, so he must be co-signing what was said. And I think maybe that's maybe a fair criticism. I guess he's bringing it up because he thinks it's a funny story or whatever with the locker room situation. I would never mention that again. That was a really, really rough time. And it was embarrassing for people backing him. Now, I think a lot of people could accept the explanation because a lot of people do have locker room talk like that. Now, I don't have locker room talk like that. My brother, my father, like a lot of men in my life don't have locker room talk like that. Plenty of men out there do, and women have locker room talk like that as well. But so people could accept that. The same year Trump won the election was the same year Deadpool came out, the first one. That was super raunchy, and it made a lot of money. So people they say these hateful things, that raunchy things or whatever, that aren't necessarily confession. The grab them by this, those things aren't necessarily confession. So to bring you back down memory lane, which is interesting because I was thinking about going through the story anyway to kind of tell you behind the scenes about like what happened during that time. But when that tape dropped, I remember I was at the office and stuff, and people were just watching it in horror, like him coming off the bus and all that stuff, and talking about grab him by the whatever. And but Trump also talked about this woman he was trying to pursue who was married, and that he apparently wanted to have an affair with and was trying to get at her or whatever. And then he brought up that she looked totally different and whatever, and I guess wasn't attractive anymore. But I thought it was interesting that people jumped about onto the grab them by the, like, when you're famous, they let you do it. You know, you can go up and kiss them, grab them by the, you know what? I thought that was interesting that people grabbed onto that, because that I accept as locker room talk, and a reality of I don't know, women chase after dudes and do let people do all kinds of stuff to them when they're it's just the truth. I'm not saying women should do that or men should do those things. I think people should behave in far more admirable ways. But again, people kind of could accept it as locker room talk because they think it's kind of true. But I was appalled that more people weren't like, y'all just cool with him, like, going after, trying to persuade a married woman to do things with him. Like, I'm like, are y'all a bunch of cheaters out here? Like, that was far more appalling. So everyone was disturbed with Trump, I guess, but I was disturbed with the rest of humanity, because I'm like, how did y'all all just kind of skip over that? So that's how I felt. But anyway, when it happened, everybody felt like it was over. Like, they had just there's always like a surprise, some kind of October surprise or whatever, to just totally derail the election or whatever. Or at least campaigns try to find one. That was the moment. That was the bomb that was supposed to annihilate Trump and destroy his campaign. And it felt like that. And then there were so many people who were just like, it's over, it's done. People were like, is Mike Pence even gonna be his vice president after this? Because Mike Pence he was, a governor. He brought he was conservative. He brought this, like, kind of stability to Trump being this unknown entity, and so it made a lot of more people feel comfortable with Trump, like he kind of be like the guide or something. But if he drops him because of this, what will that say? Who will they get next? And so on. So it really felt like the end to a lot of people. Now, I wasn't ready to kind of give up, but I was like, this is bad. This is really bad. But so many people around were just like, it's over. It's done. Oh my gosh. Like, it's the worst thing that could happen. So Trump came on TV, perhaps that same night, and he did something he never does, and he apologized. Trump has done a lot of things. I can only think of him really apologizing that one time. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm assuming I probably have to be wrong. But as far as like his rhetoric, things that he's done or whatever, just saying flatly, like, boldly, like, I apologize or whatever. So he apologized for it. And he said, but it was locker room talk. Like, it wasn't like a real thing that happened. It's just locker room talk. And again, I think that a lot of people accepted it because they know human beings. As a matter of fact, in 2016, people made like these paper mache statues of Trump naked. And they put them in different cities around the world. I mean, not around the world, like around the country, to look at and mock and whatever. So I'm like, you people are pretty disgusting too. And maybe we're all just getting the people who we deserve, and that's how we ended up with Trump or something. Because if we just demanded, if we were so moral ourselves, perhaps we would demand someone be to a higher standard or whatever. But if you're willing to do this, is it so crazy that he ended up there in this position? So and then there was like one night on Twitter, there was this, it was trending. There was this group that had all these naked pictures of women, but they had like on their bodies different things Trump had said about women to be like this shocking, like, oh, he's so awful. And I'm just like, why? I don't need to see this. I don't need to see this. So those are the kind of things that people were just kind of putting out there in retaliation to Trump and stuff. And I'm just like, our society is broken all the way around. So that's why so many people, even though Trump was not the perfect sort of surrogate for our values and whatnot, that they're just like, you know what, we want someone who says he's willing to fight for the things that we like, but will punch you repulsive people in the face, metaphorically or whatever. So or legislatively or whatever. So he apologized and said it was locker room talk. And the debate was coming up very fast. So I knew within myself, I think I watched the debate maybe at the Oakland County headquarters, mate. I think. I didn't watch it at home. I was somewhere, and I don't think it was in the office. I think I was at a party, and I was just like, if he doesn't come out here and bring it, he's done. Because his first debate wasn't good. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. And if he's not prepared, he's just gonna fail, and it's gonna be over. There's gonna be no hope if he doesn't come out hard. So before the debate, he had a press conference with two Bill Clinton accusers and with a woman who, when she was a little girl, Hillary Clinton represented her rapist. And she wasn't a public defender, so why she felt like she had to do that, I don't know. Um, but they did want, in situations like that, they do want a woman to tear down another woman. And in this case, this woman was a little girl. Was she 6? Well, she had to be older than 6. I said 6. Um, she was a little girl, but she had to be older than she had to be older than 6. I'm sorry. I don't remember how old she was, but she was young, very young. Um, and he ended up getting off. Now there was actually a recording of her talking about this case, where she said that he took a lie detector test and he passed it, and she laughed, and she said it destroyed my faith in lie detector tests. And if you Google it on Snopes or whatever, they'll say it's false, because they'll be like, Hillary Clinton didn't laugh at a girl getting raped. That's not what we're saying. We're saying she laughed about when she recalls that story because she knows the guy was guilty. So so I would talk about this on Twitter and places, and people would show me like the Snopes article, they'd just paste the link. And I'm like, that's not even what I'm saying. Like, go listen to the actual recording yourself. People are just doing like double time to just try to defend her. So anyway, Trump had a press conference with these 3 people, which Trump said from jump, if Hillary Clinton comes after me for women and stuff I've said in the past, I'm going to talk about Bill Clinton and his accusers. So that's what he did. He had a press conference with them, and then so I was like, okay, he's bringing the flamethrower. Okay. And then on the debate stage, he just went for it. He went for it, and he came hard, and like, just like that, he was back in the game, absolutely back in the game. And of course the rest is history, and he won. But that was a do or die sort of moment. But the Hollywood Access tape was such a terrible thing for everyone to experience together. So him bringing up as a joke, or reminding anyone that it exists, is awful. It's just awful. On a side note, when we were doing the recount in Michigan, thanks a lot, Jill Stein. I was supposed to be on vacation when all that happened. So we when we had the recount, I was on the west side of the state doing it. I don't know why they didn't just let me do it on the east side of the state. Whatever. They had me drive up there to the west side of the state to do the recount and stuff. So I was over the people coming to work for Trump and volunteer to look at the ballots. And there were Hillary people and there were Jill Stein people. Now, to be honest, they were all technically Hillary people. All, I don't think there's people like, oh yeah, I really wanted Jill Stein to win. They're all like Democrats or whatever. And so after it was over, because we actually got it stopped in the courts or whatever, we were like packing up and whatnot. So I'm the only one there from the Michigan Republican Party there. And they're the 2 guys who were the one who was working for Jill Stein and the one who was working for Hillary. They both had 2 friends there. They were all gay. And at least 2 of them were together. I think. So we started talking about the Hollywood Access tape in the locker room talk, and all the dudes admitted that they pretty much accepted it was locker room talk, and they say similar stuff or worse. So when I say that people were able to accept that what Trump said was locker room talk, and that they could conceive and accept that explanation, it's because people do talk like that. And even these people, I brought up the story because these people who were technically fighting for Hillary and Jill Stein, but Hillary, were able to acknowledge that that's just talk. And they didn't actually believe that he was just, sexually assaulting women like that. Do I think that he's probably done a thing or two that's maybe probably made some people uncomfortable? Yeah, probably. But the whole what Hillary and other folks were trying to make it seem like, they pretty much accepted his explanation. They pretty much accepted his explanation. I was the only one who said, I don't really talk like that. But they all did. So very interesting time. But Trump mentioning that there was a general who's seen people fight on the battlefield, die on the battlefield, and said, but the bravest thing I saw was when you got on the debate stage and faced Hillary and was like, it was locker room talk. It doesn't sound like a true story. And if even it was, I suppose it was a joke, just exaggerating, joking, or whatever. That's not a joke I would tell as someone who was the commander in chief, and it's not a joke I would tell as a general either, because it does diminish the sacrifices of our men and women in uniform. So I wouldn't have I would have thought it was a distasteful thing to bring up if I were Trump. But Trump thinks differently. So I wouldn't have brought it up, the joke. And I wouldn't bring up the Hollywood access tape thing ever. Ever. Like, it's probably something that someone else would bring up, but if I were Trump, I would never, ever, ever, ever bring it up. And I don't like having to explain and always justify or excuse or pull out a PowerPoint presentation on why the thing that Trump said wasn't nearly as offensive as you think it is or was. I especially have less patience for it now that he's doing distasteful things to other candidates, like making a bingo card for Ron DeSantis during debates and be like, and have one of the slots be when Ron defends slavery. When he didn't do that, I don't like it. I don't like it. So I don't appreciate him bringing it up. But do I appreciate Ron DeSantis' framing of it? No, I don't. I think they both made I think Trump made a bigger error, but I think I guess I find at this point what Trump did more annoying, and I think DeSantis' tweet was more disappointing. Because I think it's not good to make mistakes like that. I think it's a good thing that he drew attention to it, because I think it still makes Trump look bad, but his narrative on it gives people a route to sort of deny it by coming after Ron. So different Trump influencers or sycophants or whatever you want to call them are coming at Ron saying that he's lying rather than addressing that Trump probably shouldn't have brought up that story. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. And it was plenty. So thank you guys for joining me. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. Like the article we went through today of when people are like, oh, the impeachment, Romney said this, like Romney's a moron. So, here's this article. You can reference back to Black Tea News, etc. Check out different merch that we have available at the website, different mugs and t-shirts. I had mentioned that Joe Biden, when they were talking in the debate about different racist stuff and they wanted to address race with Trump, but didn't really come after Joe and his treasure troves of different stuff that they could say. I do have a shirt at blacktnews.com saying denounce white supremacy, defeat Joe Biden. And there's a list on the back of some of the racist stuff that Joe Biden has said and done. So that's there. That's available on the website. There is a long sleeve version of the shirt. That's the one that I have, and it's very comfy. It's very comfy. So and I think there's still I had ordered helped a woman in my church order a shirt on Sunday night, and they're already shipping it out. So I think there's if you like order something right now, it's I'm not going to guarantee you're going to get it by Christmas, but I think there's still a good chance that at this point in time, if you order something, that you'll get something by Christmas. But if you miss it, you miss it. I've been telling you to get stuff already. So there's different shirts you guys can get, mugs and so on. So please go blacktnews.com. Check out different books that I have. That if you go to blacktnews.com and go to the merchandise pages, a banner at the top will take my book website, so you guys can read about my books and go ahead and purchase some if you would like. I write contemporary fantasy, historical fiction fantasy, paranormal romance. I have action adventure. I have nonfiction faith books. And I have, of course, my book, of course, God is blatantly against abortion. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You guys can get it on ebook and paperback. So go ahead and get the goodies. I got the goodies. Anyway, thank you. And I will see you guys tomorrow.